I wanna scrap that. I didn't like the way that worked. Baltimore and WNST.net. We had a wild week one in the National Football League just here in Baltimore, and the Ravens getting by the Buffalo Bills. But for all the scoreboard watchers out there, and there's so many scoreboards to watch, I got to keep an eye on the Orioles in the middle of all of this as well as they head to Fenway Park. But around the NFL, a great afternoon. I enjoyed the end of the Cowboys game as well as my red zone and watching Seattle struggle to beat Miami. And I think everybody was enjoying Sunday Night Football right on up till that kid missed the kick out in Phoenix, and New England is now 1-0. We welcome in longtime NFL writer and fantasy football writer, and I see him out at the Combine year after year. You can follow his work at Sporting News or out on Twitter at Vinny Iyer. That's VINNIEIYER, one of our defending champions, living down there in Charlotte, North Carolina, where they had, as Bruce Springsteen once sang, high hopes, but they're also 0-1 here to start the season. Vinny, how's life, man?
Good. Thanks for having me, Nestor. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, man. And I know it's always a pleasure we got these games to talk about because for 9 months we talk about drama and drafts and players and free agency and stupid preseason games. Then we finally got a little meat, on the bone here. One thing I want to start with is just the New England Patriots because we all want them to, be exterminated and put away and have to battle back and all of that. And certainly Belichick had some bitter beer face at Garoppolo and some of the things that happened on Sunday night, but they don't look like they're going to be 1-3 or 2-2 here when they get Brady back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, now the scary thing is they might be 4-0 at this point. I mean, you look at the teams that they're drawing at home here with Miami and Buffalo and Houston. These are not teams that are exactly world beaters and are established teams with the same old. They're teams of change and teams that have limited offenses. So it's sitting pretty here. This was a tough one to get through. How are they going to respond? I thought on Sunday they could be blown out of the building, but they showed us wrong and had the same game plan that they might have gone in there with Tom Brady. And the execution preparation really impressed me on really on both sides of the ball. They knew exactly what they were going to try to do, play ball control with Jimmy Garoppolo, and then really limit the chances for the Cardinals defense and kind of frustrate them with the chances to go deep. And that's vintage Belichick, just knowing the tendencies of the opponent and really playing those aggressiveness against the Cardinals. And that's why he's that kind of a coach.
A lot of teams with high hopes. Carolina, Arizona, the Cowboys, all 0-1 starting the season. And really, I mean, I guess for Carolina to go out in Denver and lose one thing, Dallas losing at home and Arizona losing at home, that's some cold water in their face to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, 0-1 is not too much panic time for a lot of teams. I think the Chiefs had to get that one against the Chargers. They were staring at some tough things. I think the Colts have to already be going splat with what they're doing. But I think with Carolina, I think they're in position to rebound. Arizona is as well. So it's not too much panic time if you're a good team that can stay the course, that you don't have too many holes, you're fine. But if you're one of those mediocre teams like Indianapolis trying to find its way, it's a do or die here already in week 2. We know that it's a dramatic drop-off for teams that are 0-2 and not making the playoffs. It's very hard to do that, even though 2 teams were able to do it last season.
Vinny Iyer joining us here from Sporting News, and we got plenty of football on the brain here. And let's start with Cincinnati and the Jets. We're going to see the Jets play on Thursday night. They're going to play Buffalo, and one of those teams is going to be 0-2 on Friday. Certainly Cincinnati getting their quarterback pushed around, but a very, very productive day for them. And all you ask is you can win that kind of a game on the road by a point, and they managed to find a way to do that on Sunday.
Yeah, it's funny. We always like to fade the Bengals and say Andy Dalton's this or Andy Dalton's that. They can't do certain things, and then they grind out a win like this, and you're reminded how talented of a team they are and really can beat you in a lot of different ways. And if their running game's shut down, that's fine. They'll just throw to A.J. Green and let him beat Terrell Revis for a lot of big plays. So this is just always a complete young team, solid nucleus. The regular season is not the problem for the Bengals. They're going to keep rolling through that. I think the Jets, on the other side, it's going to be a problem for them because Buffalo is maybe the most favorable thing on their schedule here in the next couple months, and that's not very good for their chances here to be a playoff contender.
I thought we would learn a lot about the Jacksonville Jaguars, whom the Ravens see the week after this week. We're going to go down there, sit in the pool, and wondering whether people are going to show up, whether that offense, the vaunted offense, and what they're trying to build. Very familiar place for them. They lost on Sunday, albeit to a powerhouse Green Bay team, or a team that we think is going to be a playoff team, probably the best team in their own division. But tough loss for Jacksonville, and to be talking about bootstrapping and improving and all that doesn't mean much when you lose on opening day.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things that they hope to upgrade with their running game and defense, but I don't think those are manifested yet. I mean, Chris Ivory and his unfortunate situation not being able to be out there in his first game, that was a tough thing to what they wanted in the power running game. But defensively, it's going to be a work in progress. They have a lot of guys they got to put together and gel in a hurry, and it's going to be a slow, steady progression there. So I think people have to be patient with the Jaguars again. I mean, I know they've been playing the patience game now with how they've rebuilt it, but I think this is still a team that's maybe 1 or 2 more years away from being that complete team that we respect as the playoff contender.
Boy, if they're 1 or 2 or 3 more years away, they're going to have a lot of patience down there with Gus Bradley, right?
Yeah, they have to. I mean, it's a lot of changes. I mean, they took 2 or 3 years to fix what they wanted offensively, bringing Blake Bortles and the receivers. Defensively, they try to do it all at once, maybe to play a little bit of catch-up. But the one good thing is it's the AFC South. There's a slight opening there. There's not necessarily a dominant team that's going to pull away. So they're going to have their chances, and it's really how they do against Houston and Indianapolis.
Boy, it's the NFL, man, and every week these exciting finishes. Vinny, I looked up. Oakland was losing all afternoon. I saw the highlights at the end, and I'm still not sure exactly how they won, how New Orleans lost that football game, but you got to tip your cap. I mean, Oakland's that other team everybody was talking about in the offseason, and they found the way to get a win on opening day down in New Orleans.
Yeah, I think their offense, that's what we expect out of their offense. And Derek Carr is going to light it up with Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree every week. I think the defense has got to be a concern in Oakland because it started out well. They got a play from Bruce Irvin and did some things to help Khalil Mack. But then their secondary, Sean Smith, they spent a lot of money to get him from the Chiefs. He's toasted, roasted, and eventually benched in that game. So that's not a good sign. When you go out in free agency, you think you have a certain part of your team altogether, and that secondary could bite them a little bit as we go forward. And you're just looking at the AFC West, the geography is going to be tough with Denver and Kansas City to try to break through, but the Raiders still have that potential. I like the fight and aggressiveness they have there with Jack Del Rio.
Boy, the Colts had 37 seconds in a lead at home, thinking they're going to be 1-0, and then Matt Prater showed up, and the Detroit Lions showed up, and very, very big victory to start the season for the Lions. I know the Orioles were playing the Tigers on Sunday afternoon, and that was certainly a nice matchup at Comerica, but Lions fans, I guess they got to be excited about 39 points on opening day, right?
Yeah, they got to be excited. Win is a win is a win. It doesn't matter who you're playing. I think both teams didn't look very good. It was a battle of 2 bad teams going back and forth, and really the Colts look like the worst team at this point. I mean, I think defensively they're just an absolute mess. They can't stop anything. They let the Lions' running game come to life, which never happens, and just pretty much had their way with them the entire afternoon. So when you look at the Colts going forward, a lot of problems, a lot more on Andrew Luck. He's pretty much having to carry their entire team at this point. Can't run, can't play defense. He'll got to throw the ball 50 times to win, and maybe he'll do that in a few more. He'll be able to do that in a few games, but overall, it's not a great formula to have sustained success.
I think from an injury perspective, to see Russell Wilson sort of dinged up a little bit, and certainly Seattle's struggling to beat a Miami team that I don't think any of us have any high hopes for. That was one of the shockers of the afternoon, to see Seattle have to scrap to the finish line to get that win.
I think the one thing you saw in that game is how much healthy Russell Wilson is critical to that team. There's so many little things. The offensive line is really not that great, and they faced a pretty decent the Miami Dolphins front, which was their strength is when you have Ndamukong Suh and Cameron Wake and Mario Williams. That is going to be the one thing you hang your hat on. So they're not still that great up front. They need Wilson to be able to move around and make plays, improvise, and when his ankle's not right and can't do that, it really limits both your running game and your passing game. So that's how valuable of a player Wilson is to his team. And you have to wonder now going forward, is he going to have to miss time? is it going to be a lot of concern for this team overall and how the season goes.
Vinny Iyer covers all things NFL as well as the fantasy world out on Sporting News' website at sportingnews.com. And you can always follow him out on Twitter, and thousands do, at Vinny Iyer. That's VINNIEIYER. Also see you showing up on Sirius once in a while doing some NFL stuff. And certainly over the weekend, I think one of the teams we really wanted to look at were the Minnesota Vikings after the Bridgewater injury, the trade. Philadelphia was crumbling. I was up there for Springsteen shows twice last week. No one was talking about the Eagles even beating Cleveland on opening day. As it turns out, both ends of that trade, a happy finish for them in week one, Minnesota winning in Tennessee, and Philadelphia beating up on a Cleveland team that we're all wondering, we're all hoping that their only victory is not against us.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like with all the positives that came out of RG3, it looks like old RG3 is back. A little inconsistent, tentative, made some bad decisions with his body, got banged up.
And not surrounded with a lot of talent either. Let's be honest. Let's be frank.
No, he's not. He's making the best he can to do with what he can. And there were some good things from Corey Coleman, Terrell Pryor early, and you saw Isaac Crowell run pretty well. But it was a tough Eagles defense. The first really tough matchup, just maybe some nightmares from being in this division earlier and facing this front, Fletcher Cox and those guys. So it's going to be tough for him. I think the key, again, a victory for him is somehow holding up to play all 16 games this year.
What does it mean to you that nobody particularly ran the ball well on Sunday? Every team tried to run, but there was no one, standing out with that, 31 rushes for 198 yards kind of day. I know we're in a passing world, but if you look through, and I know you're a fantasy guy and a stat guy and all that stuff, running backs even more devalued than ever, where nobody's really in triple digits all day.
Yeah, I think the guys you look for are the special guys who are going to give you something in the passing game. You look at Lamar Miller, he's just a complete back, and you look at the numbers, pretty big all around. They gave him 32 touches in his first game, where Miami kind of gave him half that on average. So when you look at there's a few backs like that. Matt Forte still grinding like that in terms of being able to be used in the passing game to kind of pad the stats. That's what you're really looking for now. That's where you get your best rushing production. You're not going to get guys explode for 150. It's more like a David Johnson type game where it's going to be 140 combined with a potential for a few touchdowns. So those are the type of backs that are now the transcendent ones in fantasy football, reality football, really what we used to get from Marshall Faulk, only in a little lesser package.
Vinny, for the Ravens, and we've talked a lot about this over the last couple of days, some thoughts about where they are. And, I looked at that Bills team, and I'm a little worried for Rex. That's not a very good football team, and I don't know that it's going to get better. And certainly the issues with Watkins, the issue with their left tackle now, Tyrod running around trying to make something happen there. The Ravens look good enough to me. I'm happy with 1-0. I think starting a rookie left tackle and a rookie left guard, bringing all these guys back, whether it's Suggs and Pitta and Smith and Flacco, all coming back from injuries, and all participating healthfully and getting a victory and looking at Cleveland and Jacksonville on the road. The schedule has set up nice, but it's a feel-good thing for the Ravens. But, boy, I'm worried for those folks out in Western New York. It'll get cold out there soon.
Yeah, it's interesting start because I don't think anyone quite knows what to make of the Ravens. The good thing is their defense showed up early and played very well, so that's always been something they hang their hat on. So I also think the offense will get better eventually. They'll be able to run a little bit more effectively, get more receivers involved for Joe Flacco. So the trajectory is there. I think they cannot be ruled out of the AFC North mix and getting back into the playoffs because when things are healthy there, the track record is that Harbaugh and Flacco get the team to the playoffs. So that's where you have to look at it. On the Buffalo side, I think the writing may be on the wall here soon, especially facing the Jets next, that last stomping grounds for Rex Ryan. Very injury-riddled team, a lot of suspensions, different things hurting the Bills, but if they don't do much to show life, I think there's going to be a midseason change there.
Well, I mean, we were trying to identify who the good teams are. It's easier for me to identify the bad teams. Cleveland's a bad football team, right? I mean, Buffalo to me looks like they could be a bad football team. I'm beginning to worry about teams like Dallas, especially with the quarterbacking situation. To lose a game like that on Sunday, really kind of a thud to start their season and their high hopes.
You really look at this league, and there's a lot of elite teams at the top, maybe 4 in each conference, and then there's the rest of everyone else trying to fight for scraps. And then Cowboys and all these teams that may have a little bit more gloss, but not as much substance as you think. Those teams are going to continue to struggle, because if you have all these teams have a common theme, they struggle defensively. They have some things that have some shine offensively, but the Cowboys fall right in that boat. I think you can throw teams like the Saints and Lions and Colts, and maybe, unfortunately for them, the Raiders at this point. So these are teams trying to overcome that, but there's a clear separation with the complete teams that have few holes and the have-nots with seemingly in a lot of spots at every position.
Dude, what the hell happened to the Chargers? I mean, I can't imagine the pain. I mean, those are great-looking jerseys. You get to wear that powder blue. But I tell you what, there's a lot of pain associated with being a Chargers fan here lately.
Yeah, it's just tough because you're not used to actually being that bad like last year. I mean, they're somewhat in the middle of the pack or a little bit better consistently, but they're just not a very good defensive team. Now they're really down to a few weapons now. Keenan Allen looking bad out for probably long term here, and Stevie Johnson already lost for the season. There's a lot on Phillip Rivers, and probably too much because I don't think they're that good up front defensively, and I don't think they're that great up front offensively, and it's going to be a lot more pressure on him to do a lot, and that's not fair to him.
Boy, Alex Smith to have that kind of comeback, blowing a 17-point lead late, that is not the way you want to start week one.
Absolutely not. And the Chiefs are a team that everyone kind of disses, that says, oh, they're not built to come back. They're very conservative. But you look at them, they're going to get it done. They're going to find their playmakers. You got to be impressed with the way that Spencer Ware played without Jamal Charles. He really carried that team as well as Smith. And going forward, the Chiefs are just solid. You know what you're going to get. I don't think they're going to be spectacular and put themselves in the elite mode, but I think at least in a league where you don't know what you're going to get from a lot of teams, at least they're consistent.
All right, he is Vinny Iyer, covering all things football and fantasy football. He is their football writer out at sportingnews.com. And always, you can follow him on Twitter at Vinny Iyer, VINNIEIYER. Hey, man, we're going to rest up here, get ready for Cleveland. Week 2 was in the headlights here, and happy football to you, Vinny. This is our favorite time of the year, right?
Definitely it is, Nestor. I appreciate it, and anytime.
And in between, we have 6 meaningful baseball games this week, including the Orioles at Fenway Park battling for the American League East, and these 10 teams in the American League battling for various positions. And, of course, we'll be in Cleveland this week for the Ravens and the Browns. Luke will be on the backfields at Owings Mills all week long. Any updates come to you via our social media on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. You can always email me, nasty@WNST.net. And any of our content here that you miss, you can find in the Buy a Toyota audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. And don't forget, breaking news happens first if you're on the WNST tech servers. That's powered up by Coons Ford at Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. Our morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's all powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. You got headlines, box scores. Luke's writing, I'm writing. I'm writing this week about the Orioles and attendance woes as they come home and take on the Tampa Bay Rays on Thursday night. 2-part series coming up on that. I know Luke's been writing from Owings Mills as well as on all things Orioles. So we got a busy week. Eric Weddle will be joining us next Tuesday at Adams Jeep in Aberdeen to swab for the bone marrow registry. We'll be talking with him for the first time. I'm really looking forward to chatting with him. He's been a tremendous guy and a real asset to the organization. And it is going to be a pleasure to have him out in Harford County next Tuesday night. All for There Goes My Hero and for leukemia and bone marrow registry patients like my wife. You can email me anytime, nasty@WNST.net. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.